Good morning. Good morning. I'd like to call to the Kentucky Community and Technical College System Board of Regents to order. I'd like to ask Mrs. Stegall, parliamentarian, to please call the roll.
Chair Hamilton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens,
Yes.
Secretary Whitman. Yes. Regent Cox,
Here.
Regent Fulton,
Here.
Regent Givens,
Yes.
Regent Hall,
Here.
Regent Horn, Regent Hunt,
Here.
Regent Martin, Regent McGraw, Regent McGraw. Can you hear us, Regent McGraw?
I'll shoot her a text.
We'll come back to her. Regent Powers,
Here.
Regent Rabinowitz. You're muted, Regent Rabinowitz.
Here. Sorry.
Thank you. Regent Sutherland,
Here.
Regent McGraw, Chair, we have quorum.
All right, I'd like to hand over to Dr. Quarles for some introductions.
Thank you and good morning. And thanks to you once again for JCTC and Dr. Handy for a wonderful reception last night at the Fisher residence. We appreciate that. Thank you so much for that hospitality, as well as breakfast provided by our culinary arts students as well. Before we jump in today's agenda, just two quick introductions. We have our representative and chairman of the House Post-Secondary Education Committee, Representative James Allen Tipton, with us today. And you're more welcome to say a few words if you like. You can approach this microphone.
Well, good morning again. And, I've served on a lot of boards in my days before I got as an elected official. So I understand the challenges that you face. And I know that this is a sacrifice of your time. You're taking time away from your family. You're taking time away from your work and your business. And I just want to say thank you. And like I said before, the decisions you make are impacting the future of our citizens, our young people. And as you know, it's not just those young people anymore. It's those non-traditional students, and there's a great opportunity out there for them. But I just want to say thank you. You appreciate it. Feel free to reach out to me. I encourage you to be in contact with the legislators in your area, in your community. Get them on your campuses. Get them and just develop those relationships. During session, it's not real easy to have time to develop relationships. So I think it needs to be an ongoing process. I encourage you to do that. So thank you again. Don't hesitate to reach out. And your work and the work of KCTCS is very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. And a lot of the construction that we saw yesterday on our tour, including the upcoming renovations, are partially, if not fully, funded by state appropriations, along with support from JCTC and our foundation and capital campaigns as well. But we were able to get roughly $30 million in this past budget for a new building here. So thank you so much for your support of that. We appreciate that. Mr. Chair, just one other introduction here. We have a former JCTC president with us, Dr. Tony Newberry, in the crowd. And to quote the scholar of our time, Dr. Reese, they should name a room after you. But we appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much. That's all I got.
Dr. Handy, please, thank you for hosting us. Would you please highlight some of the great work going on at JCTC, please?
Thank you, sir. So I've spoken a couple times already to this group, and I want to kind of cede my time this morning. And we spent this morning talking about what I'll call community partnerships and quality of life type of partnerships for this area. We're going to move a little bit to another topic that I think you'll find engaging, and that is workforce solutions and the key work we do for building our communities by providing a workforce and by providing technical training for incumbent workers that improves their quality of life, their pay, and probably most importantly, gives them a chance to go home to communities and invest those dollars and grow those communities and neighborhoods. And so we have with us our Chief Academic Officer, Vice President of Academic Affairs, Dr. Nikki Cobb. When I arrived 10 years ago, there were any number of stars that I recognized right away. This person's got talent and this person's got talent. And there were quite a few of those. Certainly Nikki was one of those because of the work she was doing at that point in time in workforce solutions. And she has transitioned from that role over the last few months, spending the last year and a half as the interim chief academic officer, and now is that role full time. And I'm not surprised at all. One of the caveats for taking that role was to continue to keep a finger in the workforce solutions effort because she's come to love it and she sees its impact. So let me turn it over to her to talk to you all a little bit about workforce solutions and the workforce training that we do at the college. And I think the message is going to be similar to that you would find at other colleges in the system as well. Sort of the unsung area, because we oftentimes don't count those students in our head counts and in our graduation rates, and yet what they're doing is just as important. So, Nikki?
Thank you, Dr. Handy, and good morning. As Dr. Handy said, I spent about 20 years in workforce solutions, so I am passionate about it. Now that I'm in my chief academic officer role, I can support workforce in a different way. So today we're going to take about 10-15 minutes to explore a nice case study. I think you'll find with workforce solutions at Jefferson, where we tend to lead the pack in terms of revenue and enrollment. And so, as you know, the 16 colleges across KCTCS all have workforce solutions teams, and they're uniquely situated in each of their communities to serve the need of that community, which can vary from community to community. We have a unique mission that focuses on 3 key areas. So you can see here, we're working on growing our existing workforce. We provide education and training for the future workforce, and then we support any other community and economic development needs as they arise. What this actually looks like for us is this screenshot here, which shows you kind of the depth and breadth of some of the partnerships. This only represents 2 handfuls of the companies that we serve on any given year. And what you'll see here is we represent the 5 key sectors in Kentucky. So you'll see manufacturing partners, healthcare, transportation, logistics and distribution, and construction. Many of these companies have worked with JCTC Workforce Solutions for 2 decades or more, and some come in for just a year to serve so we can serve their need for that time. One common misconception in workforce solutions across the state is that we just place students. So a lot of our employers reach out to us and say, can we hire your graduates? And we say, get in line because they're almost all already working. But that's just one piece of what we do. What I'd like to highlight today is the significant piece of our business called customized training. If you don't know yet, Jefferson has 6 campuses across our 7 to 8 county region. And I like to think of the workforce department as the 7th, sort of in hiding campus, because we serve all of the business and industry partners in our region, sometimes here on campus, but many times at their own facilities at the times and days that make sense for them. So what you'll see is that we offer anything inside the catalog, which is, as you know, multiple hundreds of pages of content, but we also serve content that's not in the catalog. So one of the examples that I cite frequently is I was meeting with an employer and they said, do you do HVLP? And one of our slogans is the answer is yes. Now tell us the question. And so I said, sure, let me research this. I came back, reached out to one of our dean subject matter experts and found out that that was high volume, low pressure paint. And we did have a subject matter expert that could teach it. So you won't find that in the KCTCS catalog, but if our employer partners need it, we have this another saying that we call we're the FIO team, the figure it out. So if an employer has a need, we are going to figure it out and find a way to make that happen for them. As you know, being a working full-time adult, going to school can be difficult, and that's our core audience would be working adults. And so what we do in Workforce Solutions, if you're not aware, is we handle everything for the student. So we will build a custom schedule when they want it, where they want it, at their site or ours, and we do all of their admissions, enrollment, book purchasing. If you're at Jefferson, you know parking can be a challenge. We secure a parking pass, building access, student IDs, everything that the student might need. We're going to secure that for them so that they can focus just on growing their skill set. And that's something that, you know, our students have to navigate that on their own, but in Workforce Solutions, we're going to do that for them. And how we do that is by offering flexible solutions. One of the things that I quote quite frequently is our on-demand program. So you recognize we're September, in mid to end of September. The semester is already well underway. That doesn't matter on the Workforce Solutions side. We will run a class when they want it, where they want it. We start throughout the year. We run at 6 a.m., 6 p.m., midnight. Like I said, we will figure it out. A lot of what we do will be customized credit and non-credit. And so think about it this way. Like I said, everything that's in the catalog, we will run cohorts for employers, a minimum of 5 students in general, and we'll run it for them when they want it. The high-level process on how we make this happen is we conduct a comprehensive on-site needs assessment. So we're working with their subject matter experts and ours. We generally will do a site tour, meet with their teams, really try to understand where the gap exists, and then we're going to try to close that gap. We will develop a plan and execute the plan as the employer sees fit. A few examples of this. One that I like to quote is with a company in Southwest Louisville that is now known as Fortna. They had about 40 openings for welding that they could not fill. And so we talked to them about building a custom solution for them. We created a custom welding class, and they offered it to their incumbent workers that had good attitude, good effort. They were showing up. They were a known commodity. And we offered on-site training for them. I think it was a 40 contact hour class. We ran multiple cohorts, and they solved their own problem by working with Jefferson Workforce Solutions. I think that's a great example of an employer investing in their existing team to grow their skills. The next 2 examples there with LG&E and Advanced Ready Mix, we had employers come to us about 5 or 6 years ago and said, why don't you have a truck driving program? Why don't you have a lineman program? And Dr. Handy supported the research to make that happen. We launched both of those in 2021. We now run robust cohorts every month. We train 64 linemen and about 100 to 120 CDL drivers every year. And if you're not aware, CDL is the hardest to fill occupation in our region, number 2 in the state, only behind nursing. Russ, I'm sure you feel that pain. Working on that too. But we built those custom programs to serve our community. And that's really the essence of what Workforce Solutions does here at Jefferson. So I like to present Workforce Solutions as a win-win-win model. So the first one is our external partners. You can imagine we're going to say, yes, what's your question? And we'll deliver what you need. We're helping them fix their issues and solve their problems. We're upskilling their workforce. Internally, we generate about $4 to $5 million per year. We cover all of our expenses, and we generate a profit for the college that we give back for Dr. Handy to spend as he sees fit. We do generate enrollment that will hit performance funding. We generate credentials in many of our programs, which is also performance funding. So it's a win for us externally and internally. The other thing is our faculty generally teach these Workforce Solutions sections, so they get an enhanced compensation to do this. So that helps us with compensation, which I know this board talks about pretty frequently. It also helps them tune in their skills. So when they can go out and visit and teach and utilize equipment on site at an employer, they may have top-notch equipment. We've had a couple of instances where an employer partner with Trains dollars helped us upskill and upfit our robotics lab. I think you all were at Amit and saw our robotics lab, and we added vision systems to all of our robots there and trained their team. So think about the investment in our faculty as well. And sometimes our campuses, we have utilized Trains funding for equipment as well. You saw some of that when you were at Amit. If you looked in the machine tool lab, thank you, Jesse Shook and Dr. Quarles, for purchasing a surface grinder, something that we use to teach our workforce students. And then the last one is the student. So they get to come to a class where their employer pays for all their tuition, all of their fees, their books, their supplies. In almost all cases, they're being paid to be there. Their employer's paying their wages, and they're in almost all cases getting an increase in their salary. It's an opportunity for them. So you can see the win-win-win for the employer, us, and then the student. And then Gina's going to share with you all a very specific example related to Goodwill.
Goodwill is a partnership that I'm extremely honored to work with. We have served the past fiscal year 229 students. The way we work with Goodwill, we work with the case managers to figure out what industry recognized credential would be the best way for the students to find a job. We offered welding, enhanced operators level 1 and 2, OSHA 30. You can see customer service, nurse aid. One program that I'm really excited about and proud of, you all had breakfast with Chef Kathy this morning. We offer a customized culinary for our students at the Spot. The Spot is the young adult career services that's our neighbor, just on Chestnut Street. So the students come in for 2 full weeks. They earn their Serve Safe certification, and they also get a deep dive into culinary. And we try to plan those sessions around a catering event. So they're able to not only build their resume, they earn an industry recognized credential. We also work with Goodwill Aspire. The Aspire program, their participants are within 90 days of release. So we did the enhanced operator level 1 and 2 and the OSHA 30 with that group. Another cohort that we worked with was Goodwill South Louisville, and they presented us with a challenge. And this is one where we had to get creative here on campus. They needed a welding class for ESL, and we did not offer a welding class for ESL. So our program coordinator in welding worked alongside Goodwill, alongside our ESL department to create that. So we found a textbook and materials in Spanish and in English, and it went over. It was a hit. So we learned a lot of lessons from that, and students earned credentials. Featured in the picture is that group, and they made a, if you can't probably see, but it says Cuba, and it has a cat. So it was their Cuban house cat. So we work with Goodwill in a lot of ways. Another way, we do lunch and learn sessions with their participants. So Workforce Solutions goes over to the Goodwill site, and students can come and ask about the credentials, ask about enrolling in Jefferson, and we provide that information. Does anyone have any questions about our partnership with Goodwill?
Or Workforce
Or
Solutions.
Workforce? Thank you.
Just a comment, while we have a legislator in the room, our trains funding, we use every single dollar of that. And it's a direct connection with our workforce mission at KCTCS. We appreciate the funding, and we could always use more.
Yes,
Thank
and thank you, Dr. Quarles. And I never miss an opportunity.
Thank you, though.
And I never miss an opportunity to thank KCTCS and Dr. Quarles for the continued investment in trains. It helps our employers greatly, so thank you.
So there's a little bit about Workforce Solutions. If there's no questions, we'll cede the time back for the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Tipton, for the hard work you do for us. And we chuckle about the trains funding, but when an employer finds out that up to 75% of the cost of training their own employees can be covered with some of these dollars, that gets them really excited. That's oftentimes what swings the opportunity from just a conversation to something they're really committed to doing. And it does help those, we call them students, but it's really the existing workforce. It really helps them. And so thank you for that. That's probably one of the smartest state expenditures that's made because of the impact it has and how it reverberates through our communities. So thank you, sir.
Well, I'd also like to say that while we have a legislator in here, this healthcare thing is pretty important too from a budget perspective. So we do appreciate all the great work that's being done. But healthcare. There you go. Me too. Me too. No doubt about it. So today we really have two things from the audit committee that met August 28th. One is a retrospective review and one is a forward-looking review. I'm going to give a little bit on the retrospective. If you look within your onboard app on page 16, if you look at the report from our auditors, or page 91, I think, as it scans through all the pages there, you see pretty much a summary of where everything is that you as a regent would need to know or should be asking about. And the reason I bring this up is I think it's very important that as regents, we understand that this audit process that has really evolved over the past 2 to 3 years, really 2 years, in my way of thinking, has significantly helped us from an external perspective in the way people view us. We've become a very transparent organization. We've become one that addresses issues very quickly. Obviously, as chair of the committee, I like to think it's because of the audit committee, but it's a lot of great work on the part of staff and Todd and so many others who are there. But we had to review the last year's audit report, and I was very pleased to see that there were things in there that as an audit committee member, you go, I'm glad we're talking about this, but this is nothing that should keep any of us awake at night. These are all things that are easily correctable. These are all things that will make us better. So that summary page, as a trustee, as a regent, should give you all the information that you need. If you would like to read through all of it, I certainly would encourage it. I think if you went back 3 years and looked at the issues that a regent should be worried about versus today, you know that you can sleep a whole lot better now. So I'm very pleased with that. But that doesn't change the fact that we've got to have constant and forward-looking commitment to do even better and to make certain that we have no gaps, make certain that we are one of those organizations that is always willing to be very transparent and very open. And I think we are there, but we need a budget, but we need an audit plan for the upcoming year that needs to do that. And we need to approve that today. So I'm going to turn it over to Todd. I do encourage you to ask questions here. This is the work plan for what goes forward. What you saw in the board portal was the past to me. We've come a good distance, but this is the forward look. If there are things that you'd like to see in this plan that aren't, now's the time. Todd?
Thank you. And as a reminder, we as administrators, we work with the audit committee to try to help provide the information, but they actually report directly to you as the Board of Regents. So our job is to work with them. You are the ones who hold the financial responsibility. And so it's very important when they come and talk about this that they're actually reporting to you directly rather than through me, because I don't want to try to somehow skew the information in any way. I do say to our team frequently, I would like us to get to a place where we're thinking more like architects than mechanics. We'd like to start thinking about how we build things for the future, not how we fix things from the past. And so we're trying to move in that direction. Part of that philosophy you will find in what Dean Dorton is going to propose as they have discussed with us where we think our needs are for the future. So we have two representatives from Dean Dorton here, Jody Wren and Lance Mann are on the line. And so Lance, I'm going to turn it over to you and we will go from there.
Thank you. So for those in the room who don't know me, my name is Lance Mann. I'm a director at Dean Dorton, lead our Louisville office, and also spend a lot of time in the higher ed space and in the internal audit space. I did want to start by just saying we're very grateful to get to serve KCTCS. KCTCS trains more of the workforce in Kentucky than anyone else, and it's just a spectacular organization statewide, and a lot of respect for you all as board members and for the management team, and we're grateful to serve. We're here today to go over two things. One is to kind of wrap up fiscal year 2025 from an internal audit perspective, as Chair Cox mentioned, and to look forward to fiscal year 26. And I'm gonna let Jody go through a lot of the details, but before we do that, I do want to give a little bit of gratefulness to the KCTCS team and the board members who spent time with us here in the risk assessment process. the risk assessment takes hundreds of hours, and it takes a lot of hours out of people's day to help us in assessing risks and the internal audit plan. And that involved key management team members and board regents members, and grateful that you all took the time to help us put together a very comprehensive risk assessment and internal audit plan for fiscal year 26. If anybody has any questions, please just speak up as we go through it. I'm going to let Jody go through the details here, but I'll be here along with Jody to answer any questions you all may have.
Hi, good morning. Pleased to be with you. As Russ has said, and as Todd has said, and Lance said, we worked throughout, starting in the spring, meeting with executive leadership, the college presidents, the business office leaders, and anyone across the district or across the system to kind of help us develop and decide where should we be focusing our attention in the year. And what we really appreciate, and as a career internal auditor, what I appreciated was the candidness that we had and participation from all the parties that worked with us in developing this plan. So we have structured our plan just on a quarterly basis. And just to highlight some of the areas we're going to be looking at, in the first quarter, we're going to be focusing on bad debt management at the college level and continuing our business office audits. We look at business offices through, if there's turnover or if there are a lot of transactions that may be flowing through or different high points. So we're not looking at every system or every college this year, but we've covered in the years that we've been doing the review, we do kind of a rotation. So we have a smaller cohort that we're looking at this year because some of the bigger projects. Quarter two, we're going to be examining some of the challenges that KCTC has seen, as well as colleges across the country, the fraudulent financial aid application, and see how the colleges are dealing with it, trying to detect it.
Hey, Jody, can you pause 1 second? Let's let them
Yes.
catch up on the slides. I don't know if you see them on the screen here.
Yes.
So if you want to go to page 10 of that document you have open right there. Right there.
Yes. Thank you.
Go ahead,
So
Jody.
again, yes. So again, this kind of gives you a high level of how we're going to be planning out our year. And we've already begun, scheduling some of these reviews. So second quarter, again, looking at what across the system as well as across the nation, the issues with fraudulent financial aid applications. So we're doing research on the outside, also looking to see how others are handling this very challenging process, as well as looking at onboarding practices at the system. So we break our audits into, system audits, and then we also do, college-based audits. And so the onboarding practices would be looking, from a system perspective. Then we're also going to work, we heard through our interviews, some challenges, different areas are having with regards to the PeopleSoft system, a very robust system that has lots of information, and maybe not everybody knows how, they talked about some of the challenges of having to run 3 and 4 reports to get the information they want. So we're going to try to help bridge some of those gaps and help staff have a more effective use of the PeopleSoft software, since it is such a robust system. And then also look at, a lot of time has been spent in the last few years looking at policies and procedures. And while there is a staff person, brought on to dedicate herself to enterprise risk management, she's been kind of pulled off, to do other important things. So we're going to try to help her do a kickstart on the ERM process and try to build that out a little bit more robustly. And then in the final quarter, we're going to be doing like a follow-up review or a review of the capital projects processes. And you may recall that those changed a year or so ago, and they've been implementing them. So we're going to be looking at that to see, identify anything as proactively as we can on, improve, potential improvements or how that has actually changed the process and improved it, as well as doing a follow-up review of our safety and security. And then we begin the process again. So it's a really, I think, robust plan. The conversations with the staff and the board members and the audit chair that we had helped us, pull this together. And we're really excited to work with KCTC teams. We found everybody to be, as a career auditor, it's a breath of fresh air to work with people that are committed to doing better and being better. And we're glad to walk along that journey and help KCTCS continue to be, providing the best services to their students and being a great employer to their employees. And if there's any questions.
And then Jody, I'll pick it up from there. There's one more slide after this one. One of the things we committed to early in our relationship with KCTCS is a significant portion of the internal audit time that we have is going to be spent looking at technology-related controls. As the world evolves, technology plays a bigger part in all of our daily lives and all of our business lives. And colleges and universities maintain significant amounts of personally identifiable information, along with financial information and just an abundance of information. I'm certain there's people in the room today that have experienced the negative components of technology. And so we put together a separate IT audit plan. We have a significant IT audit department within our firm that works closely with your IT department to develop a multi-year internal audit roadmap dedicated to looking at IT, and it's based on federal guidelines that KCTCS is required to follow as part of the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act. And this is the 4-quarter plan that's been put together for this particular year. But just know, I think it's about a 3-year plan we put in place to make sure we're hitting every area you all are required to be compliant with in accordance with federal guidelines. And this is what we'll be auditing in this particular fiscal year.
If you could, Lance, if we could go back to the slide of other areas of risk not included.
Yes, sir. I believe it's right after
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
right there. One of the things that I think is important to point out from an audit perspective, as a region, I'd be looking at this and saying, wait a minute, there's a lot of really important things in there that need to be considered. And I want to make sure that you understand, this does not mean that these areas are not being held accountable, transparent, but these are things that we now hand over to management, to leadership, to execute on that we feel comfortable with. The fact that they're not included in the audit plan doesn't mean that they're not examined, they're not held accountable. They're just things that become a priority of a different level. Is that the right way to say that, Lance?
Yes, sir. So as with any risk assessment, you're going to develop areas of risk that are mitigated in other ways. And so they don't necessarily require internal audit time to monitor it. And so I'm going to take an example here because it's always a hot button in the higher ed space. You may be wondering, why isn't Dean Dorton looking at pro cards and the usage of pro cards? There's a good reason for that, because about 3 years ago, we worked with the management team in place at the time to help you all adopt a technology solution that's continuously monitoring all of your pro card transactions on a monthly basis and continuously auditing those. And somebody on the management team gets a report monthly of any high risk pro card transactions that they can go back and audit strong. They can go back and gain support for to determine if it's appropriate. So that's a risk that's already been mitigated and doesn't require internal audit time. Some of these other areas like succession planning, it's a risk that we would, put onto the board. It's not necessarily a high risk, but it's something that we want you to be cognizant of in your decision making and in your future planning state. Hiring and retention, something for HR to be monitoring, making sure that you've got the best hiring and retention practices. Communication challenges, you've got a robust communications team. They need to be, making sure they've got the best practices in place each year and looking at those. And so we bring a variety of risks to the management team each year that won't necessarily be appropriate for internal audit to look at, but they're risks that the management team should be aware of in their daily work.
And I basically wanted this slide back up to say, if Regents, if there's anything on here that you would like to see in the audit plan that's not, we can have that discussion. Or you can let myself or Todd know that. But I wanted just to be clear that these are things that we trust are mitigated, that are part of the operational responsibility on a day-to-day basis of leadership. That doesn't mean there's not accountability. It just means that it won't focus in the audit plan.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll point out, Chair Cox, is audit plans are fluid. So something that may be a risk today, come February, you may say, you know what, we've got something that's much higher risk that we need to audit now, and we need to delay something else. And so the risk assessment process doesn't end today. It's something that's continuous throughout the year, and the audit plan could change throughout the year as risks evolve.
Lance and Jody, could you speak a little bit to the slight philosophical shift this year to talking about assurance and consulting, and the distinction between those two pieces in the audit plan?
Sure, I'll be glad to speak to those. So internal auditors typically are known to be more of compliance focused, assurance focused. And what is a benefit of another benefit is because internal audit is so ingrained in the processes and understanding, having these conversations, and have a wide breadth of background. They can also be used for what are called consulting engagements, which are more forward looking. So assurance engagements you could see as being more, looking in the past, seeing if policies and procedures were provided, followed, et cetera. Consulting engagements really help the organization move forward by looking at processes and identifying things proactively to help the organization achieve the objective of whatever the process is that they're looking at. So this year, in talking with Todd, we looked at some of the things that had come up during the conversations really weren't areas to perform an assurance engagement. They were more being proactive and trying to help the organization achieve the objective of whatever that process is. For example, the bad debt. I mean, that there was a change in, what had happened where we were putting things to the state treasurer, and the treasurer says, oh, we can't do this anymore. And so we're putting it back on the schools. And there's contracts with third party, bad debt collection, and, what's being done proactively to manage this new change. So it's here to help. And so with several of our projects I would consider to be more of consultative in nature versus being assurance. So we're excited. As auditors, we get excited about those kind of projects and helping an organization move forward.
Did that answer your question, Todd?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, it is time to review the internal audit plan for fiscal year 2025, 2026. Todd, would you please present this item?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I actually, hang on one moment. I don't have the motion in front of me. The one time I needed the notebook, I didn't have it in front of me. Okay. Yeah. So our request is that the Board of Regents would approve the 2025 internal audit plan that's been proposed by Dean Dorton.
Is there any feedback or questions on the internal audit plan? If not, take a motion to approve the 2025-2026 internal audit plan proposed by Dean Dorton.
So moved.
Second.
Chair Hamilton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Stevens,
Yes.
Secretary Whitten. Yes. Regent Cox,
Yes.
Regent Fulton,
Yes.
Regent Gibbons,
Yes.
Regent Hall,
Yes.
Regent Horn, Regent Hunt,
Yes.
Regent Martin,
Yes.
Regent McGraw, Regent Powers,
Yes.
Regent Rabinowitz,
Yes.
Regent Sutherland.
Yes.
Motion passes.
If you don't mind, Mr. Chair, just a couple comments. We appreciate the due diligence that the audit committee does, the most fun committee, I believe, the most important. And we have a lot of new regents. And so as we meet with you, we'll give you a recap of, we went through 2 public audits, forensic audit, multiple internal audits. We have one almost done at the Kentucky Fire Commission. And so we really are proud of our efforts on compliance that we've achieved over the last couple of years and looking forward. Auditors are our friends. It's great to have an extra set of eyes on what we do, but help also guide us and perhaps let us know about what's going on in other higher education institutions as well. So we really appreciate your all's work.
And President Quarles, I'll echo that and close it out for us. From my perspective, as chair of this committee, the culture of accountability has improved significantly. And to all staff that are involved in that, it is a difference maker in organizations. And I think it's a strength that we have going forward. So thanks for Todd for your effort. And, you know, accountability and the culture of accountability doesn't happen with just one person. You know, it's a system sort of attitude and culture. And I think we're achieving that on a regular basis. So thank you all for your efforts there.
Thank you.
Dr. Neal, Dr. Williams, Todd Kilburn, and Ann Jarvis, please walk us through the Huron review and the geographic footprint analysis.
Chairman Hamilton, members of the board, Chairman Tipton, thank you for joining us today. We're going to give Todd a break on this one. We've got a number of folks that will be joining us to help out with this next presentation. The presentation that you see on the screen is titled Strategic Planning. We really want to be talking about planning strategically. And so I want you to keep that phrase in mind as we move forward with this presentation. I'll give you a quick update. And let me go back to the puzzle pieces. I want you to think about puzzle pieces, putting puzzle pieces to make a holistic picture. That's really what we're talking about strategically planning for the future. How do we put multiple puzzle pieces together to create a beautiful picture as we move forward in the future? So the agenda that we're going to talk about in this presentation, we're going to be weaving together a number of different activities, and I'll be inviting up 3 other speakers that will cover a variety of different components of this strategic plan. We're going to start with a look at our current strategic plan. For our new board members, our current strategic plan started back in 2022, a 4-year strategic plan. This is the last year of that strategic plan. So as we do typically in September, we bring you updates on performance metrics, and we'll ask Alicia Crouch, our Vice President of Organizational Policy Analysis, to come up and give an update on that. We'll end with talking about the next strategic plan, the development, the progress to date, draft language that you have helped to craft, the leadership team, and will lead into how we gathered a lot of the information. And then in the middle of this, we will, after Alicia presents, we're going to give you an update on the Huron study. It was a request from the board meeting back in June that we give you an update on progress to date on a variety of different items within the Huron. And we can't give you an update on Huron without also coupling together an update on Senate Joint Resolution 179. And we'll explain that, both of those studies in a little bit more depth as the presentation goes on. While we'll be giving you high-level updates, and you'll see red yellow, and green used a lot throughout all of these different presentations. We like to color code things to make it easy to identify. Green being things that we've tackled, things that we're on top of, things that we're moving forward. Yellow, things that are under further study, that under further development. And then red, things that are either on pause or things that we need to pay a little bit more attention to going forward. And then we're going to, although these are going to be some high level updates, as board, I would imagine you want to take a deep dive into some of the progress elements that we have undertaken over the last year in relation to moving some of these items forward as we committed to over the last few years. And so Dr. Scott Williams is going to show you one of the key developments that we have pulled multiple elements out of these studies, combined them into a new way of accountability. Russ, Regent Cox, to your point, a new way of holding ourselves accountable on a variety of different topics that I think you'll be very interested in. And then we'll transition into some of the draft language that you all have helped us move forward in the development of the next strategic plan. But before we get going into these reports, I want us to have a common understanding of some of the basic elements of a strategic plan. Not every organization designs strategic plans. They may set some goals for themselves, some measures in place to measure progress, but not every organization does. Now, our board has put into policy that we will develop a strategic plan that will be a multi-year strategic plan. It doesn't necessarily say it'll be a 6 or a 5 or a 4 or a 3-year strategic plan, but it does outline a number of components and the different audiences that we will involve in gathering input into these things. The components of our 4-year strategic plan, which is what we're currently working in, and will be also the same time length for our proposed next strategic plan, starts with these top 3 high-level elements that you'll see draft language on here in a minute. Now, this is looking at our current 2022 through 2026 strategic plan. But typically you'll have from the highest levels of leadership a vision for moving forward. The president, the board working on what is that vision? What is that dreamlike state that we want to shoot for? And then also, what values do we espouse as an organization? Values are those endearing elements that don't change over time. And when times get tough, you can go back to your core values and it helps you stay on track. It helps you make the right kinds of decisions. It underpins the vision that you have for the future. The vision sometimes is a dreamlike future state, an ideal future state that if in a perfect world, this is where we would like to be. It's the perfect kind of impact that we would like to have on our Commonwealth if all of these pieces came together. It helps keep us stretching for something bigger and something better. Then we start to get a little bit more granular and start to lay out some key goals and a mission statement that helps launch us on that journey. Goals will start getting into more granular objectives, or what I call transitional objectives, that go from the big picture vision, mission, that then transitions us and helps us focus down into more of the action plan strategies, action year-to-year action items. And then performance metrics, which are kind of your needle, like your speedometer in your car. It helps you to determine how fast and how on track are you achieving the objectives and expected outcomes to meet the goals that you have. Now, one of the things that we like to do when developing strategic plans, as many organizations do, is try to start with grassroots input into the development of all of this. And that can be done by organizations in a variety of different ways. It can through surveys. That's typically a very commonly used tool. Listening tours, it could be focus groups, it could be environmental scans. Well, as you're going to see in just a few minutes, we have done all of those in the last couple of years. Actually, when we started this strategic plan, as we were moving that plan forward, almost immediately we started jumping into a whole bunch of these other studies and environmental scans and surveys of all our folks across the system. And although we didn't do those studies that I'll highlight here, these studies today serve as the foundation of the voice of our employees, the voice of our students, the voice of the employers that we work with, the in-depth research that our legislative leadership asked us to dig into. And that has formed the basis of how we're going to be developing this next strategic plan. So with that, I will ask Alicia Crouch, before we start getting into those two studies and giving you updates we want to do, as I mentioned before, what we typically do at the September board meeting, and that is give you an update on how we're performing on our performance metrics from the previous year in our current strategic plan. Now, the one thing I will highlight while I still have this on the screen, eventually this year, we will bring back more of a final draft strategic plan, and ask you to vote on. And in the development of our KCTCS strategic plans, the bulk of what you will vote on will really be these top three pieces here. Down here, these action plans, which is where we get into the in-depth, granular strategies, actions that we take year to year. We divide that into two-year action plans, and that's where we get lots of input. And we'll talk about how we're going to be doing that on the real in-depth day-to-day actions that we think will help us move us forward towards goals. These two action plans are what you charge Dr. Quarles with in the management team, the leadership team of our college system here. So you will be asked later in the year to vote on this. You have charged Dr. Quarles and his team to oversee the development of that. So we will inform you of these, but these will not be a board vote. Does that make sense? Okay, Alicia?
Thank you, Dr. Neal. So as Dr. Neal mentioned,
Oh, I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. One last slide before, let me jump back up here. That's not her slide. This is my slide. So as I was going to say, when we started the 2022 to 2026 strategic plan, what was going on the couple of years prior to that, leading into that? Changed the world, COVID. Yeah, changed the world, COVID. And so even though we had developed a strategic plan with action items that we were going to tackle over the first couple of years, a lot of worry, a lot of concern. Enrollment started to go down across the country in higher education. A lot of uncertainty about the economic future of the Commonwealth, of the country, and certainly of our organization. And so the board had a committee called the Resource Optimization Committee that started working on what should we do to be more proactive about securing our future and analyzing these things. How can we better optimize our resources? How can we make sure that in addition to our strategic plan, we have identified opportunities to help make us a better organization? So we had never done this before, to my knowledge, developed a strategic plan and then authorized consultants to come in and do a system-wide grassroots study to identify opportunities. So 6 months after we launched a strategic plan, the board voted to start the Huron study. That took a little bit less than a year, and in 2023, the Huron Consulting Group reported back out to the board and to the PLT some items that you'll hear on in just a moment. About 9 months after that, 10 months after that, our legislative leadership saw the results of that. We think we need more in-depth evidence-based research on how we want to move our organization forward along 11 key areas. And again, we're going to give you an update on that. And so you had two counterpart or similar studies here, one more identifying opportunities, one much more in-depth research evidence-based focused. And so what we found ourselves in the midst of is a current strategic plan with 16 strategies, system-wide strategies, that we said we were moving forward with. Out of the Huron study came 47 other focused opportunities for us to choose from. Out of the SJR study, over 50 recommended focus areas. Aside from all of these, we work with our Council for Post-Secondary Education, our higher ed coordinating board. They generally have a number of initiatives that they want all of us in higher education working on. There was about 26 initiatives going on during this time frame, and we participated in about 21 of them. And as you heard earlier, we had 4 audits now. The next one that is about ready to be wrapped up is with the Fire Commission that had about 74 recommendations for opportunities for improvement. So as you can see, we had a mountain of priorities that all were important. So how do you put the puzzle pieces together to move the organization forward? So that's what today's presentation is Where are we at on the Huron items? Where are we at on the SJR items? How are we pulling these pieces together to move forward into a new strategic plan as we wrap up the current strategic plan? So I just wanted to point that out, that we have had a number of opportunities to improve this organization, and we have not just set these on a shelf. What you'll see later in the presentation, just as early as today, yesterday, previous board meetings, you have been voting, you have been engaged in some of the progress steps that we have accomplished in relation to these studies. We'll highlight more as we go through the presentation. But this is what it takes. And I love this slide. It's got a little humor built in, but we've got to stay as an organization laser focused. We've got to have discipline as leaders of our organization, because there are always going to be things that are coming our way. Just like the previous slide, how do you take 213 or more priorities and stay focused as an organization? We've got to have discipline as we move this forward and prioritize and work through step by step the progress that we need to make to better the Commonwealth. Now it's your turn.
Thank you, Dr. Neal. So as Dr. Neal mentioned, we are in the final year of a 4-year strategic plan. So what I'm here to talk about today is where do we find ourselves on our key performance indicators after the end of year 3? So this first slide, it just simply says what is going to be on the next few slides. So we're going to see each of our strategic goals, the objectives associated with those goals, and then we're going to look at the key performance indicators. And so that's what we're really going to focus on today. And as Dr. Neal mentioned, we've got some color coding there for you. Green, the target's been exceeded. Yellow, the target has not been exceeded, but we are above our baseline. And then red, the target has not been met, and we have not seen any growth from our baseline. So our first strategic goal is to increase organizational success. Under that, you will see the 2 objectives. One is to invest in our infrastructure, including our human capital, and then expanding the recognition of the value of KCTCS. So what are our KPIs that we are measuring to look at that? So the first one is our employee retention rate. And what you'll see here is you'll see what our baseline was, where we are right now, what our target was for this year, what our target is for next year to end out the strategic plan, and how we're doing right now on this. So for the employee retention rate, and that includes voluntary separations, retirements, and involuntary separations, our baseline was 86.9%. Right now we're at 86.2%. This does represent an increase over last year, but we are below that baseline, and we are not right now hitting our target for this year and not on track to hit our target for next year. So the alternative revenue, you're not going to see as many of those data items. The alternative revenue is a monitoring metric only. Why is that? So it is made up of what Dr. Stith talked about yesterday with the advancement components, as well as competitive grants. What happens in that area? They can go up and down year to year as you get really big grants. So Dr. Stith mentioned the Mackenzie Scott $15 million grant that West Kentucky received. So right now, for this past year, we were at 55.5 million. It's a little below where we were for the prior year, but we are on our average over the last 5 years. So we're still really there. So our next strategic goal is to increase employment success. Here we're talking about expanding workforce training to make sure that we meet the needs of our state, and then strengthening industry and transfer partnerships to ensure that skilled talent pipeline. So our 2 KPIs here, one is on the targeted industry sector credentials, and the other is post-KCTCS outcomes. So with the targeted industry sector credentials, our baseline was 31,000. You heard Dr. Quarles say yesterday, our credentials are at an all-time high. So guess what? We really surpassed our goal on this metric. So this year we were at 37,344. So almost 7,000 additional credentials tied to targeted industry sector, which is our key sectors across the state. Our target there for this year was a little below 32, target next year 33, and we have blown that out of the water, so you'll see green there. And then post-KCTCS outcomes, what are we talking about when we're talking about post-KCTCS outcomes? We're talking about employment and we're talking about transfer. So our post-KCTCS outcomes, our baseline was 72. Right now we're at 73, a 1 percentage point jump. Our target this year was 73.8, and our target next year for the final year of the strategic plan is 74.9. So we have improved from our baseline there, but we're not on track right now to hit our final target for this metric. So you'll see that yellow dot there. And our third strategic goal is to increase learner success. So here we're looking at growing enrollment and then leveraging those practices to increase learner success through the pipeline. Our student metrics, you also heard Dr. Quarles say yesterday, we've seen a big jump in our enrollment, both last year and another one coming this year. So our academic year enrollment, our baseline was 93,472. So we are actually at over 114,000 students now. So big jump there. So well surpassing our targets. What are we doing to increase this? So one, our high school students. So we've seen a big growth in high school, made up less than 25% of our enrollment at the beginning of this period, now over a third of our enrollment. But we're also seeing, Dr. Neal mentioned COVID. That shook our campuses a lot, especially in that credential seeking enrollment. We saw some big drops there. So in 24-25, for the first time, our credential seeking enrollment has surpassed where we were in 2020-21. And this year, 25-26, we are projecting that we will be back where we were before COVID for the first time in the credential seeking enrollment. So those are some really good stories to tell on that enrollment piece. Our 2-year persistence, when we look at a persistence rate, did students graduate? Did they transfer to a 4-year institution, or are they still enrolled with us at that second year? So that's what we're looking at in that 2-year persistence rate. Our baseline was 61.4%. We've made tremendous progress again on this metric. We're at 67.8%. Those jumps are huge across 3 years. And really, we are doing that on graduation. So more students are earning credentials. That is what is moving the needle on this metric. So again, well above where we our goal that we set for this year, as well as for the end of the strategic plan. So those student success metrics, we are really knocking out of the park. So in summary, we surpassed the final 25-26 target on 3 of our metrics, and then we demonstrated the growth and improvement from the baseline on 1 measure and declined on 1 measure. So the alternative revenue measure, again, is a monitoring measure only. We don't set targets on that. And then finally, I will point out, this was a really brief overview, but for the first time with this strategic planning cycle, we put our KPIs out publicly for the public to see. So we have a website where if you would like to dig into college level data or other information, that is out there for you to do.
Could you go back to the very first one?
The increased
So
organizational.
that retention rate, that's a narrow band. I mean, that's so let me make sure I understand this. So where we were was 86.9. Where we ended up was 86.2.
Yes, so we're down a little, not a lot. We're down a little from our baseline. And where we wanted to get was 88.5.
Okay. But that's our target for the upcoming year.
That's our target for the upcoming year. Our target
So
for
our
this year.
24-25 was 87.
Yes.
And okay, what can you translate that into real numbers for me? Like, what is that? I guess it would be 0.8. What does that represent?
I will get you that in a minute, and when I get back to my laptop. And
Oh no, no, I mean, man, that's a narrow.
So we have
Close.
So we have 4,000 regular full time. So 1% is 40. My math is good up here.
We heard yesterday some results from exit interviews from those that are leaving. And as we know, a lot of it has to do with compensation, but other job opportunities as
Right.
well.
Which was getting to my second question of voluntary versus involuntary.
So voluntary is about 64%. So retirement is another 17.6%, and involuntary this year was at 18.5%.
So I would argue that a red is a pretty harsh indicator on this number. You know, I mean, from my perspective, because there was also probably some constructive measures on that. I would have to think there were some people that we asked to leave. So.
Yes. So
they're in that number.
yes, 18.5%.
I object. Well, I think it's important when we're putting these out there publicly that they have explanation to them, because to me, that's number one, it was a narrow band. Number two, we self-inflicted an indicator. Now, I get it, it's an indicator. But
We're happy to supplement what we disclose to help further explain that.
But Bridget did report yesterday that we did have a high retention rate that would recommend us for further employment, and over 80%. 80% said that they would be willing to come back to KCTCS. So that other 10 or 15% may have been involuntary.
yeah.
Any other questions about the?
Thanks. Yes, just a few employees in these metrics can swing the difference one way or the other very quickly. I do want to highlight one thing that came out of our Senate Joint Resolution study as we were talking about credentials conferred and whatnot. For our new board members, I know our board members who have been around for at least a year have heard this, but this is really a celebration that we did a deep dive into, and Alicia, you correct me if I go wrong on this one, okay? On credentials conferred per capita. We looked at all 50 states. We have national data that Alicia's department downloads every single year, and we can break down the number of credentials conferred per capita so that then we can compare ourselves equally with the big population states like a New York or a California or a Illinois, a Texas, so forth and so on. And we can start to compare apples to apples. How are our students doing? How is our population doing in earning credentials that we teach towards to help prepare the workforce? And so we've tracked this number for 10 years now using national data. So everybody's using the same database. The last 3 years, where do you think we've ranked amongst the 50 states? Any stab in the dark? I see one finger up in the back. We're first in the country each year for the last 3 years on the number of credentials conferred per capita. In the 10 years that we've been tracking this, we have never ranked lower than third. We've either been first, second, or third in the entire nation on credentials conferred per capita. So folks, sometimes we get so caught up in our own metrics, our own internal review, we forget to take a step outside and lay ourselves up against the rest of the world. This is one where I think we need to keep reminding ourselves, as Dr. Quarles heard and Todd, they both went to a recent national meeting by the state higher education executive officers, which creates the database that we're referencing here, and it's higher ed for all across the state of Kentucky. At that recent conference, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
Kentucky was cited as one of the best states and one of the best community college systems in the country. Mm-hmm. And so it was it's really refreshing to hear that. And Kentucky organically coming up in other people's presentations, not knowing we were in the crowd, that they wish they were a little bit more like us. Mm-hmm. And I said, come to Kentucky and help cheerlead this. We appreciate that.
Yeah. So we're going to transition to the next part. I just wanted to throw out a celebration point, because sometimes we get so into the weeds on some of these things about how we're going to keep trying to be the best version of ourselves that we can. We got to take stock in some of the celebrations. So now the board asked, as I mentioned before, back at the June board meeting, to have an update on the 2022-23 study that was conducted by the Huron Group. So one of the recommendations that came out of that was the development of a project management office. Well, I'd like to introduce you to our newest leader at the system office, Ann Jarvis, who's the executive vice president of our project management office. Welcome aboard.
Hey, greetings, Regents. I'm so glad to have the opportunity to speak with you today and provide this update to you. There we go. Right. Well, I want to just take a step back and try to level set, because this started quite some time ago. And so what happened was, as Dr. Neal referenced earlier, there were some variables going on, and the Board of Regents wanted to take a look at the fiscal health of our campuses and our programs. So the Resource Optimization Committee, or ROC, was established, and they were charged with taking a really comprehensive look at policies and procedures and processes, and making a suggestion towards those. What they recommended was the engagement of the Huron Consulting Group. And so they brought forth that recommendation to the Board of Regents in late 2022, and the board approved that. So then everybody buckled down and started working with the consulting group. That consulting group spent months across our campuses engaging with stakeholders, learning about a lot of our processes, doing various data collection strategies such as focus groups, surveys, and other methods, and pulled together a lot of information to document what they were hearing that our employees thought would go to help the fiscal health of our institution. And so bubbling out of that work was 47 opportunities that they brought forth in June of 23. And stepping further into that, the board recognized and approved 12 priority areas. So these were the opportunities that they wanted us to most focus on moving forward. Now, also on this timeline, you'll see, also Dr. Neal mentioned it, SJR 179 happened. And so we kind of had to step back from our Huron opportunity work to a degree to focus on that and prepare a response for that. So I just wanted to highlight again, that was part of this fun timeline. So these are the 12 priorities that we were charged with looking at. That fun color coding, you'll see the green and the yellow. So the green items, we like to say, were operationalized. We took a step back, worked and focused on refining a process, creating a tool, reviewing a workflow to improve that and operationalize that so it's more routine day-to-day right now. The yellow areas, we've still got some work on that, but we've started and we'll be digging into that further. Now, this slide, this is all 47, and those 12 priority areas are still listed on here and they're numbered, so you'll see those scattered about. But you'll see we had 4 categories here, from space utilization to academics to financial and other considerations. And bubbling out of that were some more focused opportunities on compensation, administrative structure, and equity that kind of worked with this hand in hand as well. But you'll see we were able to achieve quite a bit of green. And again, this is complete in the sense that a tool, a process, a workflow has been updated, it's been revised, and it's been operationalized in our day-to-day routine work. I also want to point out we were able to reach this level of green because some of these topics were already embedded within the strategic plan work that was taking place to be improved, to be focused on. Additionally, there was overlap with some of the SJR 179 areas. For example, accreditation was in both, program sharing was in both, and additionally, personnel related matters were in both. So that gave us the leadway to make some more progress here. And in the area of space utilization, it was the case that so many of the items were so tightly interconnected, we couldn't do the priority area without addressing some of the other items as well. So they laddered up to one another, and that allowed us to make more progress in those areas. So mentioned that the items in yellow, they've got some more work that needs to be done, and it's the intent to make sure that we include that in the future strategic plan work, so we can again get to them to that green area where something's been updated and we've operationalized it. But I do want to point out again, and this has been highlighted in what was shared yesterday, Bridget talked about compensation and personnel matters and how we've got tools now that we're going to implement to review that regularly. Dr. Neal approached you and talked about certificates and programs that were going to be sunsetting, and maybe not forever, but they'll sunset for a time, and then new options that we're bringing on board. Again, there are tools and processes that were a part of this work that feed into those regular activities. So just wanted to highlight those specific ways that we're making that our routine work. Right. Well, that is all I have on this particular update, and I can try to field questions.
I don't want anybody to do a spreadsheet or anything here. I'm just curious.
Mhm.
The things that have been accomplished in green,
Mhm.
where there was financial savings, has it been quantified and aggregated in a way to say this effort yielded this?
We've done some initial conversations, and I'll leave that to Todd and his team in finance. But I'll just say that for a lot of these, there was an upfront investment that really is at play. And so it's going to take us some time to maybe realize those financial savings. And on the other side of that, I'll just say that where more immediate savings are present, it's more so the opportunity to reinvest wisely in institutional efforts. So in the example of space utilization items, if we can save on a project because we are managing projects in-house, we're able to quickly apply that to another project in the hopes of saving our local colleges, campuses, and their budgets. So,
Believe it or not, we anticipated that question today.
So I am predictable.
Yeah. And so as we implement these recommendations and opportunities, like a new PMO office, pulling out of DECA and staffing up there, the long-term savings thing we can quantify, but we have tasked Todd and his team to give you periodic reviews and updates when we can clearly express that. But for a colorblind guy, I see a lot of green. But with that said, you're about to hear a presentation in a few moments about geographic footprint that helps us better monitor some of the space optimization. Financial health of the institutions, et cetera. So we do have an additional instrument that we're implementing to help us wrap this together. So you saw 213 initiatives, opportunities from Huron, SJR, CPE, et cetera, 213. Phrase I hear a lot across the system is initiative fatigue. We need to decide of those 213 or more where we're going to go. And that's why I think it's so incredible we have the opportunity to tie this into a new strategic plan, reform legislative package on its way in a few months, really, that we can come across and have one plan going forward. And that's what I'm excited about. Tie this all together and have one plan.
Yep. Yeah. And again, we did anticipate that question because we ask it ourselves. One of the things we have to go back to, and Ann alluded to this, Huron told us this up front. Of course, in the report, they said, if you do this one, it could save you this amount, or it could generate that amount more. But one of the things that they said right off the bat when we prioritized the top 12, number 1 was right here. Number 12 was the project management office, neither of which existed in today's state. You just voted on a piece of this yesterday to move forward with this. To pull out of the Department of Engineering and Contracts process, or DECA for short, we needed to bring expertise in-house through Todd and Andy's area, architects, engineers, those sorts of things. They said this is going to be an investment up front, but what you will save in your projects long-term could be in the tens of millions of dollars, but it's just going to take some time. We had to invest in a project management office team, not just one position that Ann occupies, but a whole team of folks that support all the teams that have been working on these to keep them moving forward in the right direction, that then transition to the SJR team. So we had a significant investment up front. Some other areas we have had some savings, but as Todd and I talked about this one of the things that is probably going to be a delicate dance on tracking the actual dollar saved is that every time we try to save something, we're reinvesting in something else. And I think that's what we've got to keep some good expectations around, is that we could save a bunch more money and just stick it in the bank, so to speak. But shouldn't we be reinvesting that into another opportunity, another program, another service to industry, those sorts of things? But it is really on our minds on every one of these pieces.
Dr. Neal, would you mind talking a little bit more about if we go back to the initial 12, I'm looking at my old list when we had that joint meeting with PLT and the board. I kind of pulled it up really quick and thought when we were talking about money and the amount saved. Can you talk about why faculty credit hour production? I mean, obviously it was one of the main ones that we focused on, but we just still haven't kind of gotten through that one yet. Can you talk a little bit about
I know
that?
the academic leadership has been working on this as they had been before Huron, honestly, is how can we maximize the credit hour production per faculty? Do we have ways to, or do we have some controls in place to keep from offering classes with 3 students in it when you're paying a full-time faculty load to teach that class? The academic leadership have taken steps to better document if there is low enrollment courses, to document why that course, because sometimes there are reasons why you might have to run a class with 5 students, some very legitimate reasons. I'm sure you and Regent Sutherland could probably speak to that more directly than I can. But to the degree possible, how do we make sure that for what we're paying our faculty to teach, that we're actually getting the production needed on enrollment through that? But it is ongoing work, and a lot of that is happening. Dr. Wagner's working with the academic leadership at all of our colleges. That's a real balance that you've got to understand the local needs and the local management of these things, but understand the bigger picture at a system level, that we want to try to maximize that to the degree possible. Don't know if that answered your question directly, but it is ongoing work.
Probably as best as you can answer it, I think, today. Can you also talk about the consolidation of administrative support and why that still hasn't?
Actually, we've got a work group that that has been working on this item over the last year, and the leader of the work group is in the room with us today, and they're just sharing information with PLT on what that could look like, and restructuring ourselves as peer teams, and you know, all across our entire system, so that we can have better decision making points and a better understanding of which levels of the organization make which types of decisions, so we can move things through quicker. Approach the appropriate leadership with the appropriate tasks to make the appropriate decisions. And so that one, I think you will start to see some things unveiled in the very near future. But that work group's been working on that for
Just an additional comment on administrative support. So we have this work group, many of whom are in the room. We tasked them with this starting back in April, May. They're finishing up their work this month. We're going to digest that through PLT and decide which of those components we'll implement starting next academic year. And so high level here is we have a lot of peer groups that are doing great work. And we have some peer groups that don't meet very often. We also have various levels of organizational arrows pointing different ways. We hope to re-envision the decision-making matrix within KCTCS and also define scopes. This is the scope of this group, charge them with what area they can work in, et cetera. And effectively what this group has come up with is some really innovative ideas that reflect what's already kind of happening, but it hasn't been formalized. So we have a lot of work ahead of us for implementation after the spring semester.
So I hope one takeaway from this is, although we started with 12 that we prioritize as a board and as a leadership team, we have made much more progress on more than just the 12. And so leading from this study, less than a year later, when our legislative leadership asked us to dive into a much more research-based, evidence-based study, and we had teams, multiple teams, including folks from all across the system, digging into really taking a number of the Huron topics and converting them into some new focus areas, as well as asking us to dig into some things that may not have popped up into the Huron area. We began when the legislature passed Senate Joint Resolution 179, and our goal, or our directive, was to report back to the legislative committee in December, and this was all of last year, 2024. And so we put the teams together, and they hit the ground running. This was not using an external consulting group. We did this internally with many folks from across the system that spent countless hours doing national research, digesting all kinds of data, looking at things, and making what eventually became about 50 different recommendations along the topics that were outlined in the SJR, which are these 11 items here. And again, we use green for that we've made significant progress on these. yellow, ones that we're still working on. Some we identified and said, like system accreditation. We analyzed that. We looked at systems all across the country, whether we should stay accredited the way we are today as 16 independently accredited colleges under one organization, or should we become one college like we see in a couple of places around the country. And every angle that we looked at, all the data suggested we probably have the best model going right now for a variety of different reasons. So that one, we've presented that recommendation or that finding to the legislature and to this board, and that one we have as green. One that you're going to hear about in just a moment, we're going to invite up Dr. Scott Williams, president of Owensboro Community Technical College, is on the geographic footprint. We're not going to get into all 50 plus recommendations that we put in last year's SJR. I just wanted you to see the 11 items that were in the SJR itself. Give you some ideas about what's moving forward. Some of these are yellow, such as these two right here in the middle, the two on the left that are yellow in the middle row, because they would require to move forward to take our recommendations. The legislature would have to take action on those. So to change governance, if we wanted to optimize our governance structure, that would take statutory change. If we wanted to, I think there's another one, the very last one on the bottom, outdated or conflicting statutory language. If we wanted to update statutes, it would take legislative action. Funding model, we laid out a very innovative, funding model that's used in one other state. It's the one everybody's pointing to, that if we could go to that model, we could truly do some things that would set us apart from other states. That would take legislative action. So that's why some of these are yellow, that we've done the research, we've made the recommendations, and you'll see some of these coming up in our legislative package that we're going to be working with our Chairman Tipton and many others in the legislature this year. So we anticipate that you wanted to see a deep dive. How did some of these pieces come together and how is it rolling forward? And so Scott Williams is going to come up and talk about the geographic footprint and give you an in-depth view of how we have developed something new out of these studies that is going to make us a better organization.
Thank you, Dr. Neal. Morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be able to update you all or report out on our work with the geographic footprint. Get to our slides. It's really an opportunity to kind of share with you all how we're putting the pieces together of SJR 179 research as well as the Huron study. So ultimately, the geographic footprint, the purpose why Dr. Quarles put together a work group to evaluate and actually come up with recommendations or a process for geographic footprint evaluation is a result of SJR 179. Specifically, a part of SJR 179 said KCTCS will establish an evaluation criteria, a systematic review process to evaluate the viability of colleges as well as the footprint our sites and campuses. But reality, that was not the only driving force for for the geographic footprint. In fact, it was also influenced by the Huron study and allow us to kind of connect the pieces. And so the Huron study also had not only input, but influenced what we did with the geographic footprint in areas such as substandard space management, program offerings and enrollments, section enrollments, and external lease agreements. Those were all in the top 12 high priorities that were listed. There are other Huron opportunities that influenced this work, and that was space prioritization and decision-making, space scheduling systems, space data requirements and reporting, budget reserves, and cost to educate. So you're going to see that weaved in here as we go through the results or the work from the geographic footprint group. So our objectives, what we were charged with was one, and I'm pleased to say, before I get to what those are, that we were able to meet these objectives. But the first thing we were tasked with was to develop a decision matrix, if you would. We could call it a monitoring tool. We also had to create and implement the guidelines for the review process. We also needed to discuss and incorporate, were there any budget support outcomes that might be necessary within this framework? So we were able to carry out all 4 of these objectives as we move forward. And the rest of the presentation is really going to focus on what the result of that was. Before the work group got started, though, it was essential for us. We felt like we needed some guiding principles internally, what was going to guide this work. And so essentially, these are broken up into 5 areas, but these guiding principles helped us in not only our decision making, but how we presented this work and how we moved it forward. First and foremost, we wanted to make sure that this was a comprehensive assessment process that could be used across all colleges, as well as the owned and leased properties that the colleges used. So part of what we were established and charged with, it needed to be comprehensive enough to work with all properties, whether it was owned or used by the state. We wanted to make sure that we could translate this information into something meaningful for all users. And so not only the users of this would be internal to KCTCS, but there might be external users as well. We wanted to make sure that the message, the tone of the message of the deliverables were effective and required action. So it was important to us that this really set a tone that it held a degree of accountability, as Regent Cox mentioned. And then we wanted to make sure that this work and the efforts here were at the core of KCTCS's mission, as well as the legislative expectations that brought forward this work. We wanted to ensure that all the decisions of the committee should be acknowledged, should acknowledge all accreditation implications. Because once you start looking at physical resources and financial resources, it can have those implications. Foremost, we want to make sure that any decisions or recommendations we made as a work group were sensitive to our students and the communities that our students are in. Obviously, we've had a lot of learning success recently, and we certainly don't want a process to damage that. We also wanted to make sure that those decisions would be sensitive to our local workforce and economic development needs as well. It was important that this work be strategic, and it was something that could be sustainable. So if we're going to build a tool, if we're going to have a monitoring process, it needs to be sustainable. We want to make sure that the financial and operation sustainability indicators would consider that we are part of a collaborative, centralized system. In other words, that could come to bear if we had to make some adjustments. And finally, we felt it was important to utilize multiple measures. We didn't think we need a monitoring tool that was one single measure. It needed to be multiple measures that measured those things. We sought out simplistic measurements that were very comprehensive, but some of them are quite complex. And finally, the intent of our work, we felt like, was not to produce a process with a centralized control or a decision by committee, but that we really wanted this particular process to support the local college presidents and primarily the KCTCS president in managing these decisions. And then finally, we wanted to make sure that whatever prompts that we used in our evaluation metrics, that they focus on the biggest challenges that a college face. So at the cornerstone of this work was the development of a decision matrix. You can call this an evaluation tool if you would like, a framework. But this framework is made up of essentially evaluation metrics that can be used to evaluate the financial and enrollment health of a college. Furthermore, we set thresholds for each of these evaluation metrics that would trigger a prompt for a further review. And that further review may result in an improvement plan that could result in ultimately some changes if they are necessary. So this decision matrix, if you will, were broken up into 3 areas. We have financial evaluation metrics, to ensure that the institution is financially healthy enough to be able to maintain its geographic footprint. Enrollment metrics, and obviously, do we have the enrollment that would justify our geographic footprint? And finally, there are other factors that aren't necessarily directly financial and/or enrollment, but they are indicative of the institutional health. And those we kind of plug those in as what we call qualitative factors. So they were in kind of a catch-all, if you would, classification. So let's talk about each of these in perspective or a little bit more detail. So the financial metrics included a composite financial index called a CFI. This is composed of 4 nationally normed benchmark indices that are used across higher ed nationally. So nothing new, nothing created. We've been using within KCTCS for several years. We also felt like the second financial metrics that is important for us to include in here was unrestricted college operating reserve fund balance. And that's really reported out as a ratio with our unrestricted operating. Okay. So our composite financial index, and you'll see this for each of one of these areas, are scaled in a, we love to use, I guess, red, yellow, and green. They'll be color coded. So, and I'll talk about those scale in just a minute. For the enrollment trends, we focused on full-time equivalent trend analysis for on-campus students. This does not include online students, all right? And I'll be able to share this in a moment, but we were able to do this not only for every college, but for every campus within a college and every building within a campus. And then also average class size analysis. Now, what is that? Average class size is how large is that class relative, or how many students are in that class. The discussion was earlier about faculty credit hour production. If you have a lot of classes with low enrollment, that may not be financially sustainable. So this looks at, are we getting efficiency in our course delivery? Again, all the enrollment metrics are based upon on-campus students, not online students, because we were tasked with evaluating our geographic footprint, okay? So each one of these have thresholds that would prompt some kind of a response. And we base that on a scale, as I mentioned earlier, of red, yellow, and green. So for the composite financial index, it ranges from a negative single-digit number to a positive single-digit number. All right? And so looking at the national norm, schools that are in a healthy financial position typically have a composite financial index of 3 or more. So we set that as a green in our scale. Institutions that are between 0 and 3 in the composite financial index are at a slight risk from a financial standpoint, and therefore we put that into yellow, and anything less than 0 is considered a higher risk from a financial standpoint. In this case, the threshold or the prompt for further evaluation basically is predicted upon 3 years of declining indices in yellow, or actually triggering into the red. And I'll show you how that works in just a minute. Unrestricted college fund balance, this is based upon, we set the threshold and scaling based on your work as a board of regents, and that is we want to make sure that the colleges were at least maintaining what you said is currently set about 20%. And so in this particular scaling process, any school that's 25% or higher is green, yellow is 15 to 25, and less than is 15, or red is less than 15%, which is about not quite half, but close to half of what y'all said is a 20% goal for us as colleges to have. In this case, the threshold was essentially 3 years in the yellow, or if a school jumped into the red, it would be prompted for further evaluation. On the enrollment trends, the scaling process is if a school's full-time equivalent enrollment of on-campus students at those sites is steadily holding or growing, they're in the green. If it's declining over a 3-year period, they're in the yellow. And if they have a drop of 5% over that period of time, then they're in the red. This is a 3-year rolling average, and every year sets a new 3-year rolling scale. So there is no benchmark to this. It's really about what is the trend in enrollment, not necessarily looking at every specific aspect or a benchmark or a normalized enrollment. Average class size. So any classes that are larger than 10.5, don't ask me how you can get a half a student in a classroom. So essentially any class with 11 or more students is considered to be financially sustainable. It's going to cover the cost of delivering that class. Any classes that are between 8.5 and 10.5 are kind of on the break even or bubble. So we categorize those as yellow. Anything below 8.5 or essentially anything that with 8 or fewer students would be considered not sustainable. This particular one is, we felt like the threshold was when you hit the red, there would need to be further discussion. And I'll talk a little bit more how we can use this in more detail in just a second. The qualitative factors, these are things that could impact how we move forward, or sustainability, if you will, or the health of an institution. And that is what your accreditation status is and accreditation, CPE's expectations. Sometimes there are external bodies that will sanction or challenge what's going on at the institution. We'd have to evaluate that as well. Auditing could find things that need to be addressed or might prompt us to look into it further. And then something like cohort default rate. If we don't maintain an acceptable cohort default rate, then the institution could lose its federal financing. Okay. And of course, these would be one-off indicators or prompts that Dr. Quarles or the KCTCS president would evaluate. So we wanted to make sure that these particular metrics in which we were going to evaluate in this decision matrix is really, did they work? Were they accurate? Did they tell us what we thought they may tell us?
We've got a question on the floor. Please.
Yes. Yes.
It's always me.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dr. Williams.
Yeah.
So can you go back and talk a little bit more about the average class size analysis? And we're talking about that. And you're saying 10.5 or 11 students makes a class. It pays for the instructor. It pays to keep the lights on the building. But we've got technical programs, right? And those cohorts are smaller. Aviation maintenance, for example, right? That cohort is 15. It's not going to be bigger. So I'm assuming that is adjusted within this calculation.
No. So we're looking at the efficiency here of the space, how it's being used. So what would happen in that case, if I was using a building that had all low numbers, classes that were all low in numbers, then I would have to document as to why that was. And it may be sorely because, hey, it's all technical programs and they're required to have low enrollment because
but that
of
documentation will be enough for the enrollment trend to continue to be.
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to be sure.
No, that's a very good question. But that's how we knew that would potentially happen. And so as I walk through the process here, you'll see there is ample opportunity that if something is prompted to be further evaluated, there are opportunities to document those and make sure, because there could be reasons for things.
Sure. And that goes for the opposite for developmental education. Those courses have smaller class sizes, and sometimes we have to have those courses make at lower numbers in order to move those students forward. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Generally, so those technical classes, you just might need more trainers or more money to increase the size of those classes, because I run some small classes because I don't have enough trainers for the number of students. So that could also prompt some things. So this could also be a very good thing.
Exactly.
As well. It's triggering why we're running small numbers.
So remember, this is not a punitive evaluation tool. This is actually an evaluation tool that will create opportunities for us to do even better work than we're currently doing. So very good comments. So essentially, I want you all to know that we ran a very detailed analysis. ORPA evaluated anything for these metrics. We went as far back as 10, 15 years to see what the trends would be like and were they really accurate. So we ran this through not only the work group, but the cabinet, the PLT, and we feel like this information is accurate. During that process, some of our colleagues said, wouldn't it be neat to have a dashboard? If we're going to monitor this every year, wouldn't it be neat that we have a dashboard so we can follow it in real time? Thank you to Alicia and her team, built a wonderful dashboard. And this is an example of what that dashboard would look like. I'm using Owensboro information just so my other colleagues don't feel like I'm picking on them. I'll pick on myself. So you can see here that we have all four of the evaluation metrics are represented: average class size, CFI or ratio, FTEs, and operating carry forward percentage. The good news is it's color coded, so I can see real quickly, okay, Owensboro's doing really well for average class size, CFI ratio, operating carry forward. But we look like we have some areas we're going to have to investigate with regards to FTE at our downtown campus and on our main campus. Okay. Now I mentioned to you specifically for average class size and FTE that we can get very granular in this. So these next series of slides will help show you how we can get granular. So looking at average class size, you can see that we didn't have anything in red initially, and you can see that it is all green. So you can see over the last 3 years, our downtown, our main campus, and our southeastern campus all have essentially acceptable average class sizes. You can see we dipped down in the yellow in 2022 downtown, but that has rebounded since then. But our main campus, those of you who've been on our campus know that our main campus has more than a single building. So we have multiple buildings. So we're able to break those buildings out, as you can see on the right-hand side. And you can see that at this point in time, they all have healthy as far as average class size enrollments. So it's neat that this tool gets granular and we can look at individual buildings. We can also look at not only individual buildings, but space in which we are leasing or we are operating. Now, when we look at our FTE, so looking at our 3-year running FTE trends, you can see for us here in Owensboro that we're seeing a decline the last 2 years in our downtown campus and just in the last year to Owensboro campus. Now, again, these numbers are really about trends. This is not, the single number itself is not that important. It is about the trend of the number. And you can see, so what's going on at our downtown campus? And if you look there, the last 2 years, those numbers have declined in FTE. Not very necessarily significant because it's not been 3 years in a row. It's still not been flagged for review. However, if you look at our main campus and our Advanced Technology Center, we had a significant, greater than a 5% drop. So that triggered a flag. In Regent Witten, this is an example of, I would not, something right off the top of my head doesn't allow me to say, I think this is why that is. So this is something we would really need to research and take a look at our institution. And working with the KCTCS president, he might say, okay, we need to look at this. What is the cause? Do we need to put an improvement plan in process? Now, if you look at our other flag one in our academic building, humanities buildings, our humanities building, actually that flag is not real because we jumped back in the green, but our academic building, you can see that between 23 and 24, the FTE enrollment dropped like a rock. Well, I know exactly what happened there. We closed in the fall last year, that building, we vacated it so we could put a new HVAC system in. So I'm surprised we had 8 enrollments in there. So I could easily share that with Dr. Quarles, and Dr. Quarles may say, I'm sure that's going to rebound. We don't need to do a detailed evaluation of that. So that's a prime example of where there'd be an opportunity to bring that into play. Yes.
How are you accounting for workforce solution students or those students?
It's only 4 credits. So all the FTE enrollments are 4 credit. Now, if they are for credit.
Right. Do you think there's some recognition of the traditional difficulty of accounting for some of those students when they're utilizing our spaces that are?
There is. So again, this is not, so one, the buildings are only the only buildings in this evaluation tool are those in which we have for-credit educational work being done.
Right.
So this, I'll just give you my thoughts on this. We felt like as a work group, this was really precipitated by we have more online learning. And so do we have more facilities than we need? So this is really set to address and look specifically at that. So a building on campus that has no formal for-credit instruction would not be in this evaluation. So for instance, for you in our downtown campus, we understand that that's a lot of workforce and very little for credit. Yeah. Yeah. No. So your space is in good shape, but we do have academic credit courses, programs down there, and that reflects in that. So again, let me walk through the process itself, and you'll see where there's ample opportunities to evaluate all this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but this is just basically what it would look like for your unrestricted operating fund balance. Again, it's a percentage of your unrestricted operating, and the same is true for the composite financial ratio or index. And if you're like Todd, you really want to know the details, those are the 4 indices that create that CFI. Don't ask me to explain them. They're well over my head. So I think this may help answer a few of the questions that are coming along. So let's look at the evaluation timeline. So the first thing is that this is going to be, or we are suggesting this is an annual process, and this is what we've suggested to Dr. Quarles. And so when are we going to collect the information and kind of certify the information? That phase of this evaluation process is what we call the baseline or integration data phase. And so the financial index and the total enrollment numbers, we can essentially, our fall enrollment closes out November the 1st, and it's certified by CPE by January the 15th, actually a little before January 15th. Our fiscal year ends June 30th. And then by the time we get through the auditing period and the audits, completed, you as a board approve the audit, then we feel like our financial information our financial information is available and ready by January the 15th. So we will officially certify the numbers in this evaluation tool by January the 15th of every year. However, but because we have a dashboard and we can see it in real time, once we get the numbers, and they may not be, quote, official, but we still know what the trend's going to be, we move into a prioritization phase. And this happens during the late fall and early winter. So these are semesters, late fall, of the fall semester and into the winter period of time. This would be the time which the college would be identifying priority areas. Where do I look like I may have a flag? What's red? How do I go about? What am I going to need to think about and address here? And then that would trigger a conversation with Dr. Quarles, or the KCTCS president. If a prompt is met, and Dr. Quarles feels like that prompt is met, then we would go through a planning period to develop an improvement plan. So for instance, Regent Witten, if, for instance, during the prioritization part of this evaluation, I'd share with the KCTCS president that the reason why this building is red, prompted with a flag, is because of X. So it's his decision, and he may say, Scott, you don't need to approve improvement plan on that. However, your other building, your ATC, I see that it's flagged and it's got to drop. We need to take a improvement plan on that one. So you see that is a part of this process. So that would happen in the planning phase. If a improvement plan is moved forward, that would enter the action phase, and that would be implemented on or before the start of the next fiscal year. So we get all our information in the fall. We spend spring evaluating it, develop an improvement plan if it is necessary, and then that can be implemented the next academic year. Then at the end of that year, there would be the resolution or the evaluation period where there'd be a post-improvement evaluation and debrief and saying then at that point in time, decisions will be made how that moves forward. So essentially it's a 5-phase process that happens over a single year. Now, this matrix and framework will be formally reviewed every 3 years. That's been put into policy. And then we will also continue to evaluate the data for accuracy. We may come to a point where those 4 evaluation metrics may need to be upgraded, updated, or changed, depending on what's going on, okay? Obviously, if our strategies change, they may make a difference there. And then the geographic footprint status report will be reviewed annually for each college. In other words, the results of this will be reported out annually and shared. The geographic footprint evaluation process will be governed by an administrative policy that directs the KCTCS president to eventually oversee the process. And so that's at this link, but it's already been developed. So what will this look like in practice? So essentially, all right, we're at the end of the fall semester, right at the beginning of the spring term, all our data's in. So if a college or a site at a college is not prompted, no further action is necessary. All right. All sites will be currently operational status and they will be reevaluated another year. If, though, a site and or a college or campus is prompted, all right, then it will move into the prioritization phase, which will happen during the late fall, early winter, and spring. And there, the college president will collaborate directly with Dr. Quarles or the KCTCS president to review the prompts in detail, determine the scope and urgency of that issue, whatever is prompted, develop a justification narrative if appropriate, and then draft an improvement plan based on the direction of the KCTCS president to the college president. If that improvement plan is actually moved upon and it is implemented, then that improvement plan should include specific objectives and action items. How are you going to address this? Timelines and resource requirements, stakeholder engagement and a communication plan, and metrics for progress during monitoring, kind of leading metrics that we can get an indication, are we making any improvements in this or not? Obviously, once you implement that improvement plan and execute it, then there would be a review process at the end of that year. And so during the implementation plan, there'd be regular reports to the KCTCS president. And then lastly, at the post-plan review, the college president and the KCTCS president will assess the effectiveness of the corrective efforts, determine whether their concerns have been resolved, identify any follow-up steps or possible outcomes, which would include basically the following 3 outcomes. You resolve the issue, everything's back to normal, move forward. Continued monitoring or plan adjustment. It may be where Dr. Quarles determines that this needs to be monitored for another 6 months or a year. Obviously, the improvement plan would probably be tweaked and re-implemented. And then there may be a recommendation at some point in time that there might need to be restructuring, consolidation. That site may need to disappear, okay? Or there might need to be college consolidation or mergers. But by that point, it will have been well established and well researched that this is the step that needs to take place. I mentioned this is all really focused on documentation and transparency. So there will be basically documentation all throughout the process. not just the the review process, but also through the evaluation process. Outcomes will be included in an annual geographic footprint status report for Dr. Quarles. There will be summary of findings may be reported to the Board of Regents as part of strategic planning and essential accountability. And then finally, the group felt like that clear communication plans are required. So this in particular is required if there is to be a footprint change. So through this process, if ultimately a footprint change is necessary, then that needs to have a communication plan clearly with internal and external stakeholders.
Dr. Williams, just
Yeah.
another question, if we can go back to that slide again, so I just want to make sure that everybody that's listening, faculty, staff, and everybody in this room, so we're saying that all of these reports are internal. They're going to stay within the president and Dr. Quarles' office until the end where we get the geographic footprint status report, or will that be shared publicly with faculty and staff, or how, I mean.
That is up to Dr. Quarles.
Okay.
So he will be getting updates throughout the entire process. And so that would build the status report. Then obviously he would have the jurisdiction, or it'd be his determination of how to frequently share that. So, yeah. So we don't have like we have a dashboard, those dashboards built. We don't necessarily will have a dashboard built for the reporting outcomes. So I might be able to do that, but I'll let him answer that.
Thank you. Yeah, so as is the case with other monitoring, this is new to us. This is new to KCTCS. It has not, to my knowledge, been done before. And so we're still learning how this is going to work.
Yeah.
You know, we just got this more or less endorsed by PLT. What I like about this is that you look over 3 years. So a tornado, a flood, or something else, you know, you're able to smooth that out. That's what I like about it. It's not punitive in nature. It puts accountability on the colleges to say, oh gosh, we need to address this issue, whether it be financial or accreditation, or we could look at a building and say, we're just not using this as much as we should. I think that this is going to help us craft our legislative ask in future years because it's based off data. And the fact that we do have a substantial online delivery of our programs right now, we got to reflect the fact that we have, Todd, 341 buildings. So that's a lot of infrastructure. That's a lot of bills to pay. Our presidents have already been tasked with selling property that is not needed. I want to say thank you for those that have done that. And that will continue. We did get language in the past budget, and we'll be asking for it again, that when we sell, dispose of property, that we get to retain those dollars for reinvestment as well. What I like about this is that it's going to help us make these decisions based off data. There are still conversations about mergers. There's conversations about accreditation changes. This is going to help us supplant our arguments about what the right size of the system is. And so there may be metrics that are added to the geographic footprint that we just haven't considered yet. We might have to take a look at the technical space, but that's the sort of things that we want to keep you all informed about as we go. But I think this is welcomed. I know our legislators will be presenting this to them and CPE about how this is going to work. And it helps them better understand our size, scope, footprint, but also the plan of managing all that infrastructure as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Regent Whidden, as a college president, I will share the dashboard with all our faculty and staff on a probably not more than an annual basis.
Right.
Because they're the ones that can help me solve if you know, we have a building where we're underutilizing from an on-site instructional standpoint. I want to make sure they're aware of that. So, and because they would be the ones, the faculty and staff, to help us develop an improvement plan if it was necessary and so forth and so on. So speaking for me personally, I would be very transparent as this is where we're at. This is, and so, so I think Dr. Quarles would probably, you know, be very much agreeable to that's how that would work. So we do think that's important. I did want to lastly mention budgetary items. We did have those recommendations as well that we proffered to the cabinet and the PLT. I think really you can read those yourselves, but really what sums it up is while the system office financial support may be needed to fully implement a plan, okay, from our perspective, from the college president's perspective, the local college resources are really intended to be the sources of funding for plan execution. So in other words, if I am in an area where I need an improvement plan, to be the expectation that would be my college covering those. However, we also realize that if at some point in time there needed to be a consolidation or a merger, that would require much more resources. And so and again, we would have a budget plan in process if something like that was necessary. So it is data driven, as Dr. Quarles said. And for me, one, as a president, it's exciting because now I have actionable information that I can use to make decisions. In reality, we've not always had that. I also believe what Dr. Quarles said, I think this is really unique. We're not seeing this used. We're seeing processes that other states are using in which they are measuring things that would allow them to request new facilities or new spaces or remodeling the spaces, but really not one monitoring. Because this will also tell us if our space is being overutilized. So, and how we can, so I think there's a lot of benefits to this. So.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I think we want to take a 10-minute break.
Excellent.
And convene here shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Item 15, progress on a variety of different things that, whether it be our strategic plan or the accompanying studies, we have undertaken probably the most thorough review of any community college system in the country. We probably have studied more than anybody between the Huron, the SJR, the audits and whatnot, but I really am proud of our faculty, staff, and leaders across the system for what we moved forward with. If you remember back in the 47 Huron items, we never agreed that we were going to tackle all 47, but you could see the progress on nearly all of them that we have gone ahead and moved forward. Much progress on the SJR, some of which we're going to have to lean on our leaders in the legislature to help move some of the other items forward. But we're very excited about the synergy that has come forward. And one of the things that I mentioned earlier, and I just want to reiterate this, we have brought to you, either as an information item or as an action item, a number of things over the last couple of years that you have endorsed, voted to move forward. Some of which you've heard about this week and some of which you've heard about in other weeks, but they weren't under the name of Huron or SJR necessarily. They were the things we are moving forward to be a better organization. Our personnel and payroll infrastructure that we reconstructed a summer ago. Even the salary adjustments and the compression that we just started this summer, that all came forward as part of this review over the last couple of years. So facilities presentation of moving out of away from DECA and managing facilities projects ourselves that Andy just asked for a vote on yesterday was part that came out of these studies. A bunch of the audit information and what Regent Cox was talking about, how much of a different place we're in today than we were 3 years ago is a result of all this work that is going on. A new procurement process goes all the way back to our very first study that we have brought forward in a very modernized procurement process. Chris Howes talked yesterday about student life cycle, which is about reconceptualizing the software we're using to onboard our students and take them through that student journey. Accreditation, one that you voted on a year or two ago was out-of-state tuition. That actually was one of the Huron topics. You voted to adjust out-of-state tuition to attract more out-of-state. So you have been very involved in this. It hasn't always been presented under the guise of Huron or SJR, but I want you to realize how much is moving forward. And so thank you for what you all do to support that. Now, as I said earlier, we have taken all this feedback, this grassroots feedback from all this study and analysis over the last few years to help guide us in the development of the next strategic plan. Some of the things that we have talked about will just move into the fabric of who we are moving forward. Some will be infused into a strategic plan. And so what we have done is taken all this grassroots feedback that we've gathered over the last few years and the progress we've made on these opportunities, woven that together in themes that we have been working with the leadership team, Dr. Quarles and his leadership team, as well as the board starting last spring. We had a number of workshops. We did surveys of the board, surveys of the PLT, started to draft language back around these top 3 components here. I'm going to show you that draft language right now, and I keep emphasizing the word draft because that's what it is right now. It's draft. It can change, and we're going to. So all the grassroots information is bubbled up to this. We're going to then take this back out to our people to help validate that work and populate strategies and actions on our first action plan moving forward. But let me talk about the year 2030. Why 2030? Why are we doing a 4-year plan? Well, our current plan ends this year in 2026, June 30th. But 2030 holds a point of significance. At first, I thought, is this just a Kentucky thing? Because the Council for Post-Secondary Education put a flag in the ground in the year 2030 saying by the year 20, and they did this a number of years back, saying by the year 2030, we need to have a goal of having a more educated populace if we as a Commonwealth want to be competitive on the national scene or international scene. And so out of that came the goal 60 by 30. What that said was by the year 2030, we need to have at least 60% of our population with a post-secondary ed credential of value if we want to even be up to the national average and be competitive. I ask you, do we want to be average? And so you're going to see some language coming forward that I think challenges that. We certainly want to at least hit that milestone. But that's one of the reasons why we set our strategic plan out to the year 2030 is because that is a state goal through our coordinating higher ed board, but you can also take a wider lens and look nationally and even internationally. 2030 is used as a mile marker by which the Lumina Foundation and other countries and other continents are looking out towards trying to take a better step forward as an organization, as a state, as a country, to be the most competitive that we can possibly be. So let's get into some of the work. This is a timeline we have held since the very beginning when we first talked to you about this last spring. We are on target. We're actually ahead of target where we were 4 years ago. This is the exact same timeline we used 4 years ago. We're here in the September 2025 presenting draft language to you. We have also developed a draft survey that I'll talk about here in just a moment with the language that you will see in just the next couple of slides. Our goal is in the next month to get a survey out to the populace, back out to our faculty, back out to our staff, back out to our students, back out to our boards at our colleges and here, and then some external constituent groups and say, can you validate this language, this vision, these goals that we've set for ourselves in this draft document? And then can you help populate some action items that you think would help us make significant steps forward? So let's talk about the draft language. Now, Dr. Quarles charged us with being bold, memorable, actionable. And so the draft vision statement that we have on the table right now that we're going to take back out to our folks and ask them, is this a good goal? Is college for every Kentuckian. So what does that mean? What does that say to you? College for every Kentuckian. This doesn't necessarily say you have to have a bachelor's degree or a doctorate or anything like that. It says has some post-secondary ed credential of value, which gets back to our goal of 60 by 30, right? But for every Kentuckian. As we said earlier, vision statements are dreamlike future states. It's in a perfect world, this is where we would like to be by the time that our strategic plan ends. What would happen to Kentucky if every Kentuckian had some level of college education? Imagine that. What are some of the things that we're challenged with in this state? Workforce participation, reliance on social assistance programs, all kind of health care. We have all these things that we have said for years, we're behind the national average, some more significantly than the other. What's the number one predictor and has been in the studies for decades that changes and improves workforce participation, that improves healthier living, that reduces crime rates, that produces more revenue for the state in the form of payroll taxes, that then is get invested back in our schools and our streets and our public safety, educational attainment. I think we have an opportunity here to say we need to go beyond the 60 by 30. So this is a bold statement. It's something everybody can remember, but we're going to take it back out to you all and the others to say, is this the type of vision that we want to have for our system? Values, as we talked about values being the foundation, the rock that we build our house on, the things that we lean back on when the time gets tough. This is what has been said that we feel are the core values that we need to move forward with. The mission statement. Again, we're starting to get a little bit more granular. This is the journey we're going to launch ourselves on. One of the things that really came out loud and clear is that we need to really focus our efforts towards the impact on Kentucky, not necessarily on KCTCS, but on Kentucky, the impact we have on the Commonwealth. So you'll start to see that as we start to go through these. The goals, these actually look very similar. PLT and the board thought we have 3 goals in our current strategic plan, which is a lot fewer than we used to have. We got more focused in the current strategic plan. We really felt like 3 was the right number. Changed the wording a little bit, put the word accelerate in there instead of increase, put student success first, change the word employment success to workforce success. So those are the draft language that we have for the 3 goals. Now we start getting into the objectives under each goal, and this is the transitional language that then gets us down into the actions that we're really seeking feedback on individual strategies and actions. So you can see under student success, goal number 1, some of the strategies, you'll start to see other pieces of items that were identified in Huron and SJR and our current strategic plan, starting to populate some of these. So the pieces that we're still working on, the comprehensive or modernization of technological platforms in our student access systems. Career services, we got a whole work group still working on that. You go into goal number 2 on workforce success, increase work-based learning, partnerships with industry, alignment, mapping outcomes and competencies to labor market needs. You can start to see some of these things moving forward that we have been working on for a while that we want to take to another level. Under organizational success, you'll see some of the things that we were talking about with Bridget's presentation, that we still want to continue investing in our people because we know our people are the backbone of the work that we do. You just saw a presentation on the geographic footprint. That's in the next strategic plan. It's moving forward some of that work that allows for greater accountability, greater effectiveness, greater efficiency. Again, there's the timeline. After informing you today of this, we're gonna be testing our survey to make sure all the links work, get all our populations identified, and we'll be getting that out on the streets to thousands and thousands and thousands of our constituents, internal and external, for feedback on this. And then we hope to bring back to you at the December board meeting a more refined draft that has the feedback from these groups, and then ideally have this to you at the March board meeting, where we'll ask for your approval to move forward with a new strategic plan that then goes into effect on July 1 of 2026. Now, this will be the KCTCS strategic plan. Each college also is developing its own strategic plan that mirrors the system-wide strategic plan that's in alignment with. The other thing that will be happening over the next month is Alicia and the institutional research peer team, which is institutional research officers from all 16 colleges, will be working on identifying metrics. If we keep, Regent Cox, the metrics on employee retention, do we need to look at that differently? Do we need to dissect that differently? So that's good feedback right there that may influence, that will influence, let me put it that way, the next metric if we have that metric in the next strategic plan. So that will all be created over the coming months. So with that, we'll throw this out for questions, and that will end this presentation. I appreciate you sticking with us through it all. It was a lot of information, but we have accomplished a lot in the last 3 years. Regent Cox, you were right. We're a different organization today than we were when we started this journey.
Just want to say thank you for your team's work, everyone that's involved, the comprehensiveness of the strategic plan. And then it's worth repeating that I hope that this is an opportunity for us to pull together all the studies, all the input, reform package together for us to have one plan moving forward for the next foreseeable future. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Next agenda item is Bruce Roberts, Executive Director of Fire Commission. Would you please provide an update for us?
Good morning. My name's Bruce Roberts. I'm the Executive Director of the Fire Commission. I don't have a PowerPoint. I'm just going to get up here and talk to you a little about the updates and what's going on in the Fire Commission. For the new board members, just to give you a little bit of information about the Fire Commission. We're located in Paris. We've got 65 full-time employees. We've got 450 part-time employees. And we've got 12 offices located across the state that basically does our training for our firefighters. Our main office, like I said, is in Paris. I was just appointed the executive director in April of this year. I was the interim and the acting for a little over a year. I've been with the Fire Commission for 18 years, so I know a little bit about the Fire Commission and what we do. We represent 17,000 firefighters. We represent 770 fire departments throughout the state, which a lot of people don't really recognize that. And most of it is volunteers. We have a few paid with the cities and the counties, but most of them are volunteers throughout the rural part of Kentucky. They were talking about the audits. We just completed one audit with LRC. They found 2 recommendations, and one was to do a KAR for our training, where we would reduce training for volunteer firefighters from 150 to 115, and for career firefighters from 400 to 300, which basically what we did away was where you had 80 hours, that could have been anything, or 100 hours. So we did away with that to come more in line with what we call IFSAC, the National Credit for Firefighting. So basically, that's what we did for that. The other audit is with the Office of Public Accounts. I mean, and hopefully, like Dr. Quarles said, it should be coming up, ending in the next couple of weeks. And, you know, I don't think there's anything that's real out of line there. I think there'll be some policies and procedures that they'll probably want us to fix. But, you know, I'll be glad when that is ended. We're still working on trying to fill a couple of positions in our financial department that's been vacant for about 8 months now, to get our financial department back up. And we're kind of different from the colleges. I mean, we've got a budget of almost $58 million, and it comes from insurance surcharge. We do not get anything from KCTCS, but we are part of KCTCS. So we've been part of them for 25 years. But basically, our funding comes from the insurance surcharge and the legislators. On our grants, we don't ask for grants. We're different. We give money out. And just to give you a little bit update, the thermal imaging cameras, which the fire departments use to locate bodies, hot spots, and stuff like that, we awarded 147 departments $477,750 this past year. And basically what they have to do, they have to comply with training. They have to make sure all their paperwork's turned in. And then what we do, this is all by statute. Everything we do is by statute. So they allow us $500,000 to award to these fire departments. So basically, they'll fill out an application. We look at the application, and the board, they'll see who they want to award these grants to. And basically, that's how that works. Training facility grants, we awarded 48 departments, but them 48 departments, we awarded $1 million. And that was because the KRS basically states that, you know, training facility grants will be $1 million. And any fire department in the state can apply for them. And basically what happens is they go towards the committee, and the committee will make a recommendation. They'll bring all these fire departments in and make them to a presentation. And then they'll come back and say, we're going to award these fire departments for these grants. So, and this year, the legislation was passed for us to do a cancer screening for all firefighters. So basically, what we do is we'll reimburse the firefighter. And the cancer screening right now is we're with a company, and basically the cancer screening costs $350 to the firefighter. The firefighter basically puts the money up. We reimburse the firefighter. And that's a new project. It's a pilot project that just passed in the legislature last year. We do a low interest loan for volunteer fire departments. They can borrow up to $125,000, 3% interest. This year we had 20 departments and then applied for $1,652,000. And basically, when they get their state aid money, and I'll talk about state aid next, when they get their state aid money, they can pay that loan. So basically, they're not out any money. And when I talked about the state aid, is that each qualifying fire department, you have to have 50% of your firefighters have to be a certified firefighter. And then within 50%, they have to get 20 hours training within that year. And if they get that 20 hours training within that year, they get $15,000 from the Fire Commission. And basically, they can take that $15,000 that we gave them, and they can pay that loan. So they're not out any money. And this is all by statute. Like I said, everything we do is by statute. So basically, if they need money to buy PPEs, help pay for a fire truck, a training facility, a firehouse, repairs, they can come to us and we can give them that low interest loan, and then they can take their state aid money and pay for it. That way they're not out any money. On the incentive pay for career firefighters, a career firefighters gets a monthly stipend of $4,000, and I think it's $4,320 something dollars. And basically, they have to get 100 hours training within this year to receive that money. And if you're on a career fire department, every firefighter on that department has to get that 100 hours training. Because the way the law reads, if one does not get that 100 hours training, we can go back and take it away from the whole fire department, or we can just take it away from, they'd have to repay, that individual would have to repay. So this year, we gave it to 4,233 firefighters. The cost of $24 million. And so basically, like I said, it all comes through the insurance surcharge money that is awarded to us each year during our budget. And we'll go to training. Each department receives 21 hours training from State Fire Rescue Training at no charge. We go right to the fire department. We go to your door. We go to wherever you want the training. We were in 94% of the fire departments this year. 51 of the departments received more than the 21 hours that they were required to have. So basically, we'll take the training to you. All you have to do is request it. And every fire department to receive that state aid that I was talking about has to have that 21 hours training. And to receive the state aid, you do the 21 hours training, you do your proper paperwork, you turn it into us, and then you receive your state aid money. So basically, they have qualifications that they have to do to receive that state aid money, in the same way with the incentive money. This year, we delivered 712 classes with more than 10,000 students attending the classes. We had a state fire school in June. We had 700 students attend that state fire school that lasted Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and it was in Lexington. We also do IFSAC testing. It's a certification that over and above the 21 hours or the 100 hours that the individuals get. If you want to be say you're on a career fire department and you want to take an Officer 1 class or an Officer 2 class to get promoted, you have to do this through this certification. And we offer that certification. If you want to do a rope technical rescue, we offer that certification. If you want to do a water rescue, we offer that certification. Vehicle rescues, extrications, that's all above your regular training. These are certifications that we offer. And this year, we did 3,193 skilled testing. And then we did 5,020 written tests. So basically, if I want to come in and take a written test to be a Fire Officer 1, I'd take that test, and then I'd take the skills test that comes along with it. So basically, what we're trying to do now, everything has to be IFSAC accredited. So basically, if you join a fire department now, they expect you to be Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2 certified. They expect you to be an EMT certified. So to be Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2, that all comes through IFSAC. So it's all going back to being international based training. So where you have to be IFSAC certified. So basically, if you're not IFSAC certified today, most fire departments will not even take your application to get on. Our training academy is located in Greenville, Kentucky. What we do, the city fire departments, and there has been some volunteers that join, they'll hire these individuals. They'll send them to us for training. They go through 13 weeks of training. When they're done with the training, they come out, they're IFSAC certified. And then after they training, then in 4 weeks, they'll come back to do their EMT for another 4 weeks. So when they're complete with us, that they are IFSAC certified, they're EMT certified at no cost to the city, to the county, to the firefighter. And that is all because of the insurance surcharge money that comes from the legislators. And we are having a academy that's going on right now. The recruit class will graduate on Friday, November 14th. If you all would like to come down, our training academy is located in Greenville, Kentucky, down in Muhlenberg County. It's on a Friday morning. All of you are more than welcome to come down and join the recruit ceremony. Also, we do a candidate physical ability testing. Every firefighter that wants to be a career firefighter has to go through the candidate physical ability testing. We provide that. We've delivered 32 sessions this year, 1,165 candidates, and we issued 754 cards. And basically, to become CPAT certified, I know Dr. Quarles and some of his leadership team came over to our office and basically looked at the course, and some of them put some weights.
For the course.
And so basically, it's a course, it's a physical agility course. They have to complete it in 10 minutes and 20 seconds. And there's 8 events. And the first event is you put on a 50-pound vest with another 25 pounds on your shoulders. You're on a stair stepper for 3 minutes and 20 seconds. And you can't hold on to the rails. It's all, you just got to keep walking. And then after that, you walk 85 feet. And like I said, there's 8 different evolutions, but there's 85 feet in between each evolution. You raise a ladder, you pull a hose, you carry tools, you crawl through a maze, and you like you're pulling and pushing up on a ceiling. It's all within that 10 minutes and 20 seconds. But to be a firefighter nowadays, you have to pass that. It used to be when I got on, I got on a long time ago. When I was on the fire department, there was no such thing. And at one time, Kentucky, it's bad to say this, but Kentucky led the nation in heart attacks and car wrecks with firefighters because there was no physical agility test. So basically, we could hire whoever we wanted to hire. We could put anyone on the back of that apparatus with no training, didn't care what kind of shape you were in. But then, fortunately, we went to the legislative body and we said, we've got to stop this somehow. So we asked them to give us a health and wellness line item budget so we could start doing the CPAT testing. Since then, we've had maybe, I think, in the last 5 years, I think we've had 1 heart attack. I mean, so we've really reduced that rate. And I think it's a lot to do with the CPAT testing and the health wellness program that was provided through the legislators. So really, I mean, our office, what we do is kind of oversee all the firefighters and all the fire departments. We administer all the programs there. And also this year we did a pilot EMT and EMTA courses, and we had 100 students apply for the EMTA course, and 70 passed, and 66 have passed the national registry. So basically, you can pass it here, but if you can't pass the national registry, you don't get a whole lot. And that's one of the requirements. And from what I'm hearing, is that the national registry is really a tough test to take. And I'm hearing where people are taking it 3, 4, 5, and 6 times to try to pass it. You know, it's really a tough course. On the EMT, we have 58 students, and we've had 31 pass on the national registry. So basically, we're above the 50% national rate when it comes to passing that national registry. So basically, I mean, we're there to provide the service to the fire service. That's who our students are throughout the whole Commonwealth. And we, like I said, we take the training to your door. You don't have to come to us. We take everything to you. But we do at a lot of our locations that I was talking about that are located across the state. We do have nights where they come there and train. Dr. Quarles and, like I said, his leadership team, they came to Paris. They trained a little bit. They got to climb some ladders. They drove the fire trucks. They did a little bit of the physical agility test, you know, just to see what it was like. But basically, that's what we do. And that's the kind of an update of the Fire Commission. Any questions?
Yeah,
Please.
I'm sorry. I actually just wanted to say thank you. Hearing that report today was edifying for me. And when I first joined the board, I was surprised to even learn that the Fire Commission was part of KCTCS. I think many across the state would feel that way. But hearing your report today gives me a great deal of faith. So I wanted to thank you for your work.
Well, thank you.
I just want to echo that as well. With our KCTCS governance reform package, there will be some items that affect the Fire Commission as well. We'll be sure to update you that more in depth at the December meeting. And also maybe a plan for emergency funding for some of the fire departments that you all can manage as well. And we've never had a Board of Regents meeting at the Fire Commission since 25 years. That might be something we might want to look into.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you would provide the test for us
Yeah.
while we're there. So I'm just throwing that out there. But I would like to challenge our regents. Last year I had the opportunity to attend one of two graduation dates for the Fire Academy. It's fantastic. If you'd like to attend on November 14th, please let us know. I think I plan on being there. It's a very special day. We're building a dormitory down there, so it'll be the first or the only dormitory that we have that's affiliated with KCTCS. If you can make it, it's a fantastic day. And guess what? These Fire Academy recruits exit with 26 hours.
Yes, I forgot to mention that.
26 hours of Madisonville Community College. So that almost half of their associate's degree is completed when they finish this 13-week boot camp. So it's great for us because it focuses on training and college attainment as well.
Director Roberts, I live in Muhlenberg County.
Okay.
Just down the road from Wendell Ford Training Center. We're proud to have the Fire Commission and the Academy in Muhlenberg County. We're proud of what the Fire Commission has done to contribute to the growth of that training facility along with the Kentucky National Guard. And thank you for all you do for the safety of the people of Kentucky. We appreciate it.
We'll do our best to provide the service. Any other questions? Thank you all.
Thank you. Fantastic presentation. So we're close to the end here. The next meeting for information purposes, KCTS Board of Regents will be December 4th and 5th at KCTCS System Office in Versailles.
Let's have a couple announcements.
Sorry.
Let's have a couple announcements.
Okay, we've got some announcements.
So first off, any announcements from our regents you want to share before we close out? Welcome our new regents. Any announcements from our presidents or executive team? Seeing none, our students. Do you need permission slips for excused absences? We're happy to take care of that for you.
I think they know where we are.
That's right.
My president's here, so I think I can get by.
That's great. Well, we challenge you all to engage the other students with your all's monthly meetings with the other student bodies. And I think you're going to start an SGA organization at Maysville, right? That's great. That's great. There's a couple dates. A reminder, Fire Commission graduation, November 14th. On October 1st, there'll be a fallen firefighter memorial event in Frankfort. Unfortunately, we did have one of our own pass away recently in a wreck, I believe in Marion County. We're going to have several partnership announcements between now and the December meeting. We'll be sure to put those invites out there if you'd like to attend that. We're going to have a KCTCS, at least System Office Day of Service on October 8th. And that's something we're going to try to elevate the visibility of as giving back to our communities. I'll be visiting our campuses and I'll be sure to let you know when I'm in your area of the state as well. And then also next meeting, we'll be going over our reform package, our legislative agenda, and we'll have an advocacy day for you all to come join us at the Capitol. Last thing I have is lunch is available. It's a box format. If you want to stay here or grab and go, it's up to you. And lastly, a sincere thank you to our faculty and staff in the classroom, teaching our students. As you can tell after this meeting, we have a lot of momentum. Enrollment is up. We're really proud of what you do back in the classroom. And other than that, thank you to our presidents, our executive staff team, and our staff as well. And it is September, and our KCTCS football team is undefeated, undefeated. So thank you all for a fantastic meeting. Thank you.
Okay. We'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go home.
Thanks, James Lee.
We'll give the motion to Regent Witten and the second to Regent Stevens. Any objections to the motion to adjourn? Motion passes by consensus.
Anything all day.